everybody. Welcome back to Wisconsin Weather Experts, exclusively on Fox Local. We have a great show ahead today.
Is it only Tuesday? I
It's
feel like
only Tuesday.
there was so much going on Monday on this show, and just
Yeah.
in general yesterday with Brewers home opener, and the fascinating weather that went from snow to sun and 40s.
Amazing,
It just
right?
felt like a whole week in a day there, a whole season or two in a day for sure. But yeah, it is just Tuesday, but it's also a very special Tuesday.
It's
April
Election
Fool's Day. It's Election Day.
Two special things today.
It's the first day of a new month, which means we get to look back at the old month. Yes. And this was kind of a fascinating month, March 2025. They're all a little bit wacky because March is a transitional month like no other, and it can have highs and lows and everything in between. This March of 2025 certainly lived up to that. If you look just at the temperature map, it's funny that most of the milder days were actually in the first half of the month. If you look even all the way up to the 18th, all but like 2 or 3 of the warm days were in that time frame. That second full week of the month was almost a clean sweep. We had 6 out of the 7 days with above average temperatures. And then a bunch of cold kicked in, except for that one record day when we hit 77.
Which was only a few days ago. But
Right.
what really stands out to me, Rob, when you look at this, you look at the orange boxes and then the blue boxes, and it's an extreme.
Right.
You can see early in the month we went from upper 40s to upper 30s, and then we went from that second week mid 50s to low 40s. That third week upper 50s to upper 30s. We saw so many drastic changes in the matter of 24 hours.
Right, just from the 28th to the 29th, you have a 34-degree shift, right? You went from 77 for a high to 43 for a high. So that's just the temperature calendar.
Right.
Let's take a look at the rain calendar. Now, this one was a little bit busier, which again is pretty typical for March.
Yeah, absolutely. We did see, a couple of rainy days here or there. You can see, that second, or I should say first full week of March, we had those back-to-back days with over a half an inch of rain. So very, very beneficial. And then later in the month, especially, this past weekend, we did deal with some decent rain.
Right, and now bear in mind, this is rainfall and in some cases the liquid equivalent of the snow as far as the climate data is concerned, but definitely some wet periods there after going through a fairly dry stretch during the course of the winter. Now, if we go for just the snow page, that too had some interesting ups and a lot of downs.
Yes, you can clearly see there was one day where we saw a decent amount of snow, a snowstorm that overproduced in a handful of communities, but over 5 inches in the Milwaukee area. And all those other snowy type days, most of them were just low totals and traces worth of snow.
Right. But also notable that the very last day of March had a measurable snowfall. Right? There were only 3 measurable snowfalls. One, the massive 5-incher. One didn't even squeak out a half-inch. And then on the very last day, it was only a 1/10 of an inch, but that technically counts as what we call a measurable snowfall to wrap up the month. So we'll do this again at the end of April, heading into May, and looking back at the previous month, just because it gives us some perspective. Looking at day 1 of April, could get busy by tonight. Day 2 of April could get very busy.
Exactly. We are still tracking a threat for some severe weather, and it starts today out west. It moves eastward for us tomorrow and much of the Midwest, we can say, and then moves eastward even more heading into Thursday. So a multi-day severe event that we'll be dealing with. And to kind of look ahead to that, Fox's Katie Byrne put together a really great story. Let's check it out.
Damaging winds, golf ball-sized hail, and tornadoes threatening the eastern U.S. as a series of strong storm systems move from the central region towards the southeast.
We were sitting there just watching the wind, and you could tell it was heading our way because the tree started bending. It was on us, and that tree was down in our living room.
About 900,000 people lost power early Monday after winds toppled trees and freezing rain snapped branches and power lines in the Great Lakes region.
It was windy and it started coming down, the rain, and all of a sudden things got pretty crazy very quickly.
In Indiana, authorities believe severe winds blew over a tractor trailer on Sunday, killing the driver.
We knew that there was a storm possibility, but for it to just kind of come all at once, and it felt like it was from 2 different directions. And then we heard this other pine tree fall, and that's when I was like, I think we need to get to the basement.
The National Weather Service says clusters of thunderstorms are moving towards the southeast. They're already bringing hail to northern Alabama and flash flood warnings to parts of Louisiana on Monday. Virginia and the Carolinas are also facing tornado threats as the storms pass through. Forecasters expect rain, wind, and lightning here in Pennsylvania that could lead to some flooding and possible travel delays. In Philadelphia, Katie Byrne, Fox Weather.
All right, thank you, Katie. Rain, wind, and flooding, as you heard, and that's pretty much the summary for us as well, heading through the night tonight and through our Wednesday.
Exactly. So we are tracking this next storm system that arrives tonight, primarily as a wintry mix to start, but then we're going to get a bit active heading into Wednesday. So a couple of storm systems out west right now, but you can clearly see where some of that snow is located at the moment across portions of Minnesota as well as the eastern Dakotas. And this is the region where they'll see several inches more of snowfall accumulation, more of that snow towards northern Iowa and then a rain towards the south. We'll see that slowly pushing northeastward. So Wisconsin as a whole will likely see different types of precipitation depending on where you're located. The snow is favoring northern Wisconsin again. Thankfully, no ice within this storm system like they just saw over the weekend with that last storm system, as you just heard about. And then towards the south, yes, we'll see a little bit of wintry mix initially, but then primarily a heavy rain and thunderstorm chance heading into Wednesday. So here's the bigger picture here. When it comes to headlines, there are already winter storm warnings for everyone in pink here, the Dakotas into Minnesota and far northwestern Wisconsin, surrounding areas in purple under winter weather advisories. So that's where some of the heavy accumulating snow is going to be. There is already a flooding threat for some spots just towards the south and east of us. Unfortunately, another day of high winds and fire danger in the southwest. We've already talked about that multiple times in the last couple of weeks. It is still a possibility for those spots again down towards the southwest. Severe potential begins today. You'll notice that even just a couple hours ago, the Storm Prediction Center added an enhanced risk down towards the south for parts of Oklahoma and Kansas, as well as eastern, or I should say western Missouri, excuse me. The marginal risk does extend into southern Wisconsin, right near the Illinois state line. That would be factoring in early tomorrow morning or early Wednesday morning. There is the chance, even as we wake up, that we see some elevated severe weather, meaning hail looks to be the primary threat because we'll still be north of a warm front. The threats change a little bit as the day goes on. If we do see that warm front sitting over our area, which is expected right now, we will transition to more of a threat late in the day of some damaging wind, still the potential for hail, but also an isolated tornado not out of the question. This is a large area under a severe threat. You can see the orange, once again, an enhanced risk, the yellow, that level 2 slight, and still the green being that level 1 marginal. For Wisconsin, the marginal extends up towards the north for places like La Crosse and Green Bay. In the middle here, including most of southern Wisconsin, we could say, in that slight risk. And then a few of our southeastern communities, including Walworth, Racine, Kenosha, far southern Waukesha and Milwaukee counties under that enhanced risk. So we are at the northern edge of this. It is also going to be one of those situations where if the warm front and the system tracks maybe just a little farther towards the south, it could keep the strongest storms down towards the south. It will also, again, a lot of factors in here, depend on if we have some dry time between some of those showers and thunderstorms Wednesday afternoon. That could fuel stronger thunderstorms later on in the day. So I will say there are still a few ifs, but again, at the moment, we need to be prepared for really all threats going forward on Wednesday, especially later in the day. Damaging wind, hail, flooding, even a possibility. We're going to see some heavy rain out of this storm system. And yes, an isolated tornado or two still going to be possible here locally. Let's take a look ahead here. So for the remainder of the day today, snow primarily out towards the west, but it is going to clip at least a few of our northernmost communities late tonight. So some slushy accumulation by morning. It's going to be a possibility. Hard to measure though, because with the quick changeover to rain, it's just going to melt everything and it's going to be a sloppy mess. So unfortunately, I do think tomorrow morning's commute is going to be messy. Look at this heavy rain that moves in. This is 6 a.m. So all of southern Wisconsin going to be dealing with a heavy rain, whereas wintry mix and snow will be up towards the north. Again, expect a pretty hazardous commute between the thunderstorm activity and the heavy rainfall. We see things more scattered throughout Wednesday afternoon and evening. Again, that'll be the time where that warm front should be across our area and it could fuel some even stronger thunderstorms. This is 6 p.m., so this could actually be a decent line if that really comes together. The good news is that late Wednesday night, the system looks to move off towards the east, with the exception of the snow that looks to still hang around Minnesota and northern Wisconsin throughout the day on Thursday. On the snowy side of this storm system, couple inches worth of accumulation up towards the north. Heaviest snowfall expected west across Minnesota. Can't rule out light accumulation in some of our northern communities, but again, with the rain coming just after that, it's going to wipe all of that away. And speaking of the rain, that's what we really could see here in southern Wisconsin. Over an inch looking likely, could even see higher totals within thunderstorms, so flooding could very well be a possibility here locally. After Wednesday, we calm things down, and you can see that temperatures will cool a little bit after Wednesday's warmth, but it'll level out likely in the 50s. So let's get through Wednesday, and calmer weather is on the way.
And just kind of looping back to the flooding concerns there,
Yes.
that is a lot of rain. We've had some recent rain, as we just talked about off the top of the show. And because it is the time of year that it is, storm drains may be plugged up. So if you know where yours
Absolutely.
is on the block, just go make sure that it's not covered up with leaves and twigs and all this stuff left over from the winter.
Yes, absolutely. Good call.
The other issue is it's construction season, right? So what we'll see is that some of the construction sites might flood more readily than some of the other spots because, again, there's a lot of work going on there. There's a lot of construction debris. Sometimes they'll put almost like a cheesecloth, but like an industrial strength kind of fabric in there to help keep some of that from going into our water system, which is good, ecologically, but not so great when the water pours down because it tends to flood things even more quickly. So particularly in that morning and evening commute time frame, bear that in mind. You know the construction patches that are on your commute by now. I'm sure those areas might be even more challenging when that heavy rain starts to come down.
Yeah, absolutely. So everything we need to know heading into Wednesday, it's just going to be a day to be weather aware and to be cautious as you're out and about, and especially as you are traveling.
And if you want to be a volunteer and measure that rain,
Help us
don't forget
out.
about the Cocoa Roz Volunteers package that Stephanie did. It's on the Fox Local app right here if you want to check out more information and get involved.
Yes, and let's take a live look outside right now where it is still sunny and calm. That wintry mix will hold off until later on tonight. So as you're out and about this afternoon, no problems. We'll take a quick break and we'll see you on the other side.
All right, welcome back to Wisconsin Weather Experts right here on Fox Local. We appreciate you watching. When we started the show, we looked back in March, right? We looked at the rain, we looked at the snow, we looked at the temperatures. Now we're going to go back even farther. We're going to go back 2 years ago, March 31st, with Chief Meteorologist Tom Wachs.
Well, let me take you back to 2 years ago, Friday, March 31st of 2023. This is what it looked like in Walworth County in Elkhorn after a tornado came through, one of many tornadoes to hit on this particular Friday night. Take a look at what the radar looked like. Now we're zoomed into Iowa here, and note you can see up to Janesville, and notice that line pushing all the way into southern Wisconsin. This was a nasty night of thunderstorms that pushed across the area, especially our southern communities. And you can see those tornado warnings starting to light up into southern Wisconsin as that line pushed out of Iowa and into Wisconsin again on that Friday night, March the 31st. Now, this was an expected storm system, and what we mean by that is the Storm Prediction Center had a large risk for severe thunderstorms. In fact, a rare high risk for severe thunderstorms there across parts of Iowa, Illinois, and northeastern Missouri. You see how the risk got lower the farther we went to the north. But interesting here in that we had that enhanced risk really going right over where we had those tornadoes in the southern part of Wisconsin. So let's talk more about this. These were the tornado reports for Friday, March the 31st of 2023. Now, these were all the individual reports. So there were actually more reports than there were tornadoes. So there were the same tornado had multiple reports on it. Multiple people saw it. So that's why you're seeing a few more than actually occurred. There were 12 tornadoes in all in southern Wisconsin. And again, this happening here on what was likely a busy Friday night for many here at the end of March. Thankfully, they were all on the weaker side, meaning they were EF0s to EF1. The damage was relatively minor, as tornado damage can go. It at least wasn't on the major side where we get the 3s, the 4s, or the 5s. In southeastern Wisconsin, so in our counties of southeastern Wisconsin, there were 5 tornadoes in total, but again, 12 in southern Wisconsin. But I mentioned a moment ago that enhanced risk, right, as to where we had those tornadoes, and the Storm Prediction Center did a great job lining that up. So what happened and why did it happen? Well, there was a frontal boundary that was stalled out over our area. So it was cold colder north and warmer south. And what's interesting about these stationary boundaries or warm fronts, if they're on the move, is that there's a natural rotation around these fronts. So when thunderstorms interact with these frontal boundaries, they can tap in to that natural rotation, and then that rotation will split off and split into the vertical and then can create tornadoes. And that's what we had on this night back in 2023. If you have a weather question for us, please scan this QR code and let us know. That'll come to us here in the Weather Center, and we would love to answer your weather questions here on Wisconsin Weather Experts.
Wow.
What an active evening.
Right. We were just saying, like, hard to believe that was 2 years ago now. Crazy busy, obviously, from a weather perspective. And, you know, here we are going into an active period, obviously, 2 years later. Hopefully nothing like that occurs again, but we'll definitely be on the lookout because it can. That's the time of year we're at.
Exactly. It goes to show that tornadoes are possible all throughout the year. We've seen them in March. We've seen them around this time. So a good time to just go over your safe plan, especially with the fact that there is the potential for severe weather tomorrow.
And we will have the statewide tornado drill coming up in the days ahead as well. So that'll get us all hopefully prepared and help us to stay safe. Now that's, of course, one force of nature. Another force of nature, volcanoes, been making news a lot of late. There were some evacuation orders underway this morning in Iceland.
Wow.
Thousands of people.
Look
at this video. Wow. Thousands, I guess, had to leave their homes in Iceland. The eruption began early this morning. The volcano there, in general, it's a very active volcanic region, obviously, but that particular volcano, very active, last erupting just back on December 8th. Wow.
And I think this area has been in news headlines for a while now because they were watching and kind of waiting. Do you remember this?
Yep. Oh, look at the aerial view.
Oh my gosh, that
is huge swaths of territory.
I couldn't even imagine dealing with something like this.
Well, the infrastructure now, they have to repair that road, dig back through the lava, and you can't exactly go in right away. You have to wait until things cool, and the incredible beauty of that island. I've personally never been there, but I've seen so many videos and things of it. That,
it's a destination.
Exactly. A lot of people go there because it's so beautiful. But then the power of that volcano and the volcanic eruptions there, as well as in places like Hawaii, really make you stand back and think, wow, there's such a weird balance of the impressive destructive power of volcanic eruptions and the beauty of that island, or Hawaii, where of course we have Kilauea. That has been sending lava shooting hundreds of feet into the air during the last eruption back on Wednesday and the 26th, so not too many days ago. USGS says the lava fountains reached about 600 feet high. That's huge. Can you imagine seeing that?
Incredible video.
Kilauea's current eruption crater began on December 23rd, 2004. There have been 15 episodes of lava fountaining, as they call it, during this time, with all activity remaining in the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Although a stunning view, obviously, hazards do include volcanic gas emissions and windblown volcanic glass impacting the national park and potentially nearby communities. Like we were just saying, the incredible destructive yet somehow beautiful power of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And another weather trivia question for you. We started this last week. We've got another one, pretty interesting too, on the topic of volcanoes and specifically lava. The question is, how hot is lava in regards to its temperature, of course? Is it A, 500 degrees to 1400 degrees, B, 900 degrees to 1800 degrees, C, 1300 degrees to 2200, or D, 2000 to 2900 degrees? Can't wait to hear that answer. We will have that for you after the break. So you've got 2 minutes to think, A, B, C, or D.
Yeah, and you can't use a meat thermometer to check.
Nope, not this time.
It's not going to work out. Well, I know the lava cake chocolate dessert I get is really hot, but it's not nearly as hot as real lava.
Yes, that'd be awful. But anyways.
Burn right through the table.
Yeah, it would not be satisfying. How hot is lava? A, B, C, or D? A lot of numbers I won't go through again. The answer is C, 1,300 to 2,200 degrees, and it actually depends on the type of magma and the specific volcano, but generally it is between those two numbers.
I guess that makes sense, right? The rock, the magma, right?
Yeah.
The melted rock would have different boiling points, essentially. Pardon the, I'm not sure that's the accurate term. But yeah, that makes sense that you'd have a pretty wide range. I mean, you think about it, 1,300 to 2,200, that's a wide range of temperature.
It is.
But also, it's basically crazy hot to even crazier hot. So,
yeah, exactly. Something you don't want to be by.
Right, and that's how you get those amazing pictures. And we appreciate, of course, the trivia. We appreciate your questions. We had a great viewer question from Wayne in Milwaukee, and he asked, what causes high and low pressure systems to develop, and why do low pressure systems generally have more precipitation than high pressure? And to answer that, we have meteorologist Holly Baker.
Have you ever wondered how a high and low pressure system developed, or how we go from sunny weather to now we have a bad day with thunderstorms? Well, here is the basics. Let's start with a high pressure first. So a high pressure usually is developed whenever that air cools and it sinks. And then that creates the clear blue skies that we see. Usually our fair weather is going to be associated with a high pressure system. And the reason that cool air sinks, as you see here in our demonstration, that is because the cooler air is much heavier, so it has no choice but to sink. But whenever we turn our attention to a low pressure system, that usually develops whenever you have warmer air. And that warmer air usually rises. That creates all of our beautiful clouds that we see, as well as the rain associated with some of those clouds. As in our demonstration, you have at least a warmer air rising, creating these clouds and the storms, versus the cooler air sinking, and that's creating our sunshine. So in a nutshell, that is how the high pressure system and the low pressure system is developed.
Great information there. It's nice to highlight basics every once in a while.
Well, yeah, if you don't know the weather 101, then the higher level stuff gets a little bit too crazy or too deep in the weeds, if you will. So we have a broad base of information here for every level of interest. So Holly did a great job on that. We were just talking during the break about kind of some sad cherry blossom news.
Yeah, you all know that I'm invested in the cherry blossoms. A couple weeks ago, I think I gave you an update every single day.
Yeah.
You can still see a little bit in this live picture from DC.
Well, that's not too bad.
Not too bad, actually. I was reading from the website that gives the updates. They did hit peak bloom in DC on March 28th, but now, as of this morning, there was severe weather yesterday that rolled through, and so a lot of the flowers are now down from the trees thanks to some of that strong wind. So they are no longer considering it peak bloom anymore. So it was unfortunately a very short season. They were hoping for a longer season because of nicer temperatures, but all because of the wind. But in that live picture, again, it still looked pretty good.
Yeah,
so
it's still pretty.
Still something you want to see, you'll see a little bit.
Right, and you can kind of tell when you look at that live pic, even though it is pretty, you can tell some of the trees are a little less flowery than some of the other trees, so obviously they were hit a little harder with that wind. Speaking of being hit by wind, how would you like your own personal dust devil? This poor woman, video's gone viral now, just wrong place, wrong time, and it's almost like that dust devil's just out to get her. Looks like she's on her phone, and she's like, I can't talk right now. I'm in a tornado.
Like, what are the odds?
I know, technically not a tornado, but yes, this dust devil did appear to pretty much take over her day for the moment there, and just like complete coincidence, because obviously it had nothing to do with where she was walking, and just these kind of dust devils can spin up on days like this in Texas when you get a little vertical movement in the air and some rotation, and she was just at the wrong place at the very wrong time. And
thankfully she said she wasn't hurt.
Right.
Everything was fine, but I think she needs to go buy a lottery ticket.
You would think, right?
That video.
Her luck's either really bad or really good. You may as well play the odds there. I mean, I don't think you're going to see that again for a very long time.
Agreed.
But we just had to share it with you. So we thank you for sharing some time with us. We are here every day at 12 noon on Fox Local, Wisconsin weather experts, Monday to Friday. Coming up right after us, we have the Wisconsin Live Desk, a new show. Oh, wait, don't call it a show.
It's not a show.
Don't call it a show, but it's on your TV or your phone next.